discuss about the involvement of youth in the policy processes and a multilateral system. And of course, this is a great day to discuss that, as you all know very well. And in our manifesto, the BOT manifesto, we talk in one of the paragraphs about the importance of youth involvement, multi-generational, intergenerational exchanges, etc. And in one of the recommendation of the CFS policy, we also see one paragraph that mentions the support and encouragement of equal, non-discriminatory and meaningful youth participation and leadership. And I would like to ask you, how does the Netherlands see the application of this recommendation, both in your country, but also, of course, at policy level and multilateral level here at the United Nations?
Yeah, thank you, Ludovica, and welcome everybody. It's very nice that you're here to get into a conversation with us on this important topic. Those of you who were in the room this morning when we were discussing the recommendations heard that I referenced some input that we got from young participants of some of the events that we organized in the run-up to this. And I spoke about the different phases that you could see when it is about the evolving nature of youth participation. And it differs, of course, in many countries. But what you often see is when youth gets more involved, they start organizing themselves and you get movement, alliances. They knock on the doors of institutions like this. And what we have seen in the past here in FAO is the creation of the World Food Forum and other youth organizations that got more and more influence. But what I said this morning was, in the end, having those dedicated platforms is non-committal. So there needs to be a next phase after this, and that we give a little bit of substance to that adjective, meaningful. What actually does it mean to have meaningful youth participation? And that means that you have to create structural involvement, that you have to have separate seats at the table when necessary and when possible. So that is, I think, a next phase that we still have to fight for. We as members of the United Nations, but definitely also the young people represented here, either organized or non-organized, because as many delegations said this morning, you have voices that need to be heard, but also voices that need to be taken up in the conclusions that we draw here.
Thank you. And we saw this morning as well with one of intervention from Capo Verde that there is also a problem not only in involving the youth in the multilateral arena and policy discussion, but especially in the primary sector, in all the agriculture production activities. And we feel that this is something that is really kind of an issue worldwide. And would you have any suggestion, or how could we rejuvenate a bit this sector, in your opinion?
Well, there's another thing. I'm just quoting the input of young people during this whole process. And one of them said, if we look at the evolving nature of agriculture globally, you can actually see that it is in trouble because of climate change, because of biodiversity loss, because of the degradations of soils and then the quality of water. So if that is what you see as someone who is entering the labor market, maybe because your parents are a farmer, or maybe you aspire to be a farmer, you are in agricultural school, this is not a very nice prospect, that you see that your profession that you want to have is basically on a course that is heading for a cliff. So I can understand, and that person said, well, this is not very aspirational, I'd rather do something else. So we need to change the nature of the job, but also, let's say, the bigger picture, combating climate change, revitalizing agricultural lands and forests. That is a much bigger agenda, and those people that we are talking about now have all the right to be involved in that. And that was another conclusion and another input of this morning. We need to apply a long-term perspective, the long-term lens on all these issues, and connect them to each other. Otherwise, it will remain a not so promising profession that not many people will aspire to pick up.
Yes, thank you. And this morning we came a bit to the conclusion that technologies can maybe be a tool for this to happen. What's your stake in that?
Let me share an example from the Netherlands. You may know the nature of the agricultural sector in the Netherlands, which is highly modernized, innovative, having the biggest yield per square meter or per animal in the world. Still, we have bumped rather severely into the boundaries of the ecosystem. And that is, and I'm admitting a mistake here, that is because we have long believed in innovation as the perfect solution for all the problems that we have. And there is a limit to that. Mm-hmm. So yes, we need to innovate, and many countries globally can learn from the innovations that we already provide or have gone through. But there again, here there's a bigger issue, and that is something that we talk about in this building as well. And that is the transformation of the food system itself. Mm-hmm. We need to make hard choices. We need to go to another composition of our diets. We need to go to different methodologies for farming and in agroforestry or things like that. So that is the real debate we need to have. And within that, of course, we need to innovate, and we need to be very prudent with the use of inputs and resources. But that is the bigger question to me.
Mm-hmm, of course. I don't know if, Pio, you want to complement this a bit from your...
I don't know if I want to complement that, just 2 or 3 points of reflection simply that are related to this. So first, very, very, very simple. I'm of course still under the influence of what we had this morning just in the plenary, but when I was hearing the Nima, the Tanzanian parliamentarian, the young one, and the way she was addressing to us, I mean, this was for me it was impressive. For me, it was really something that actually showing leadership and explaining exactly this kind of things we are discussing. And say, okay, now, but we want to have structural changes. We want to have in parliaments, not only parliaments, but also the implication of it. So discussing the changes of policies, laws, and so on, and be involved in this. So this is one of the elements. But the fact that actually we could then at the end say, okay, now we need to change the Codex Alimentarius, which is the next step of a legal change that occurred in Switzerland, and compared to other countries where insects are edible since thousands of years, the point is now, okay, how can we then come into the core of the system and get these small changes that actually facilitate a transformation of our habits? I'm not saying that we need to all to eat crickets with alpine herbs, but somehow these come in hand. So, Oh, così over. Okay, good, perfect.
People are working. That's good.
Yes, it's okay. And this goes back to the manifesto. Because at the beginning, we didn't even know that the young ones would come up with a manifesto. The simple idea at the beginning was to simply bring some elements for the negotiations, if you remember of those that started this project, to have elements for Switzerland, Netherlands, and others to come and negotiate an outcome for the Food System Summit to be held in New York. Then when we came to know that there would be no negotiations at all, and then the legitimacy of this process would be brought by processes like this one, like the Bites of Transformation guys, that they decided to transform recommendations in actually their vision of the future, which is inclusive. I mean, this is what we're showing here is not agriculture, right? It's everything. Mm-hmm. But through the lenses of food. And I think this is the beauty of this going and coming. And now we are to the point that these policy recommendations are being endorsed by acclamation, including by the civil society, with, of course, caveats. Nobody's ever totally happy in a compromise, because compromise is a kind of a difficult culture. But from there, okay, here we are. This is just few months ago. I remember a discussion with Marcel. We say, okay, what's the use of it at the end if this is not coming into into a change. Okay, we didn't expect, we didn't know that actually this process would be helping a lot into what we then, the legitimacy of the negotiation that followed.
Thank you. And maybe going back to the vision of the manifesto, something else that we mentioned, and that also maybe goes back to this attractiveness of agriculture, etc., for the youth, is it possible maybe, and of course it's possible because we have some people here as example, but would be kind of ways of multi-professionalize the way people do agriculture, so accompany it with other activities? Could it be a way to be more attractive maybe for the youth?
I think it's an interesting idea. Of course, professions evolve. I know that in many African countries, at least that's what I've heard, but maybe in other countries too, farmers are often already city farmers, or sometimes they are called telephone farmers. So they instruct people on their land to actually farm. I don't know whether that is the best model. Some traditional farmers would say you need to have the personal connection with your land, but others would say, well, since we also have to shorten the value chain, and we have to go to city farming and innovations like that, you perhaps come to a conclusion that you don't need 100% of your time to go into that farm or into the production of that food. So you can have different professions, and I think there could be value in kind of a cross-section or overlap between different kinds of professions and elevate it to the next level. So I would definitely say try it.
Some of us already are, and they're here, they're showing it, so maybe after people can ask them how actually they do to implement it. And maybe another question would be, what's the experience of the Netherlands with cooperatives or social enterprises?
The cooperative is a model that is long known and long used in the Netherlands. You may know the Rabobank as a good example of a cooperative bank. One of the biggest dairy companies in the Netherlands, Friesland Campina, is also a cooperative by nature. So many farmers are actually owning the company. So yes, that is definitely something we have a lot of experience with. And we see that those companies are amongst the more active when it comes to public goals. So the SDGs and other goals that we also have internationally. So I would say the values that you find in a cooperative, but this is of course just small examples, could be higher than in more commercially operated enterprises. So to me, that is something that is something we could replicate and strive for, especially since if you own the company like you do in a cooperative, but you're also mindful of the environment in which you live, you would bring those values to the table in the company itself. Whereas if you have a more traditional or commercial cooperative where the main shareholders live somewhere else, they don't care what's happening in the field. So I would say a cooperative is definitely something that we could promote because it gives the ownership to the people that should really be closest to its products.
Thank you. And I don't know if somebody also here from the public has some questions that they would like to ask or points that they would like to add to what has been raised so far. Yes.
Yeah, hello, I'm Thomas Westhoff. I'm the president of the International Association of Students in Agriculture and Related Sciences. We're the biggest student association in the world related to agriculture. And last year we signed our first letter of agreement with the FAO, which increased really the capacity of our association and young people across the globe. And I was wondering how you see those collaborations in the future. And also the World Food Forum, I think, is a good example of it. But is it not all going a bit too slow?
Yes.
The short answer to your last question is yes. Everything is going too slow. You just have to follow the news. and you can conclude that we are only catching up, if at all. So the real world is going much faster than we would hope. On your first question, what is the future of these kinds of partnerships? I would say I hope there's more. This institution that we are now, and that that's our host, traditionally is a kind of an inward-looking institution. You should walk the corridors here and you see closed doors and people not really interacting with each other, let alone with the outside world. So you are a ray of hope.
You should know how difficult it was to get the permit to be here. We just got it 2 days before.
So we should keep on trying, and I really applaud you for this great result. But again, as with everything, now the most important phase starts. What does it mean in practice? How can you be impactful? How can you implement it? So, but I'm very pleased that you managed to do this, especially as you say, as the largest organization of your kind.
I would like to chip in here also because it's what is. I think several years ago, I think at a certain moment I even joined the association or something like this. I went even for work, study somewhere. And of course things are different surely now from that time. But I would insist on two elements that you also mentioned about social enterprises, and I'll try to link 2 or 3 things. So first, the multi-professionality. The multi-professionality doesn't need necessarily to be embedded in one single person. So if you set up, let's say, a cooperative or a social enterprise that includes food, agricultural, and other activities, you might also have different professions, young ones from different professions that they keep there with their own profession actually. So expert in agriculture production or in marketing or whatever, but actually they are linked together in setting up new kind of ways of setting even companies. And this is already happening. I mean, again, there is someone that came from near from my village. I would have never ever expected that someone in a village of how many inhabitants are we there in Novaggio, Curio?
I don't know exactly, but really a few.
Yeah, anyway, we've just very few, 1,000, 2,000. You can imagine, you have a company that does a super top roasted coffee going into sustainability. At first, just surviving as a business. Am I translating well? With a very good coffee. And then realizing that sustainability is something that if you don't take this on board, most probably will stop buying your coffee soon. And so, telling us how you are then shaping the new ways you're linking with farmers from Indonesia, from several Brazil, India, several countries. And this implies another kind of mindset and another kind of being ready to share and to do things together. But it implies having a common vision, and therefore I'm coming back always to this manifesto. Because the beauty of this 2 pages and a half is the unifying vision. Something that we didn't actually get for the Food System Summit. We pretended having a unified vision, actually, but we didn't. Let's be frank, I mean, it was and it would have been very difficult to have one in a negotiated manner. So on a declaration, at least we have it, but this is just the beginning of a long journey. And therefore, I do really think that this kind of change of mindset, so this implies, and it's not mindset in the way the multilateral, we always say it's change of mindset, but actually no, you just do your business and then you realize that there are other ways to do it. And then there are other ways to look into the granularity of your situation. We keep saying Tanzania is different from Nigeria or from Switzerland. But then I would say Novaggio is different from Chiasso. Sorry, I'm talking about villages in a small place. And business is already different. And the technology, modern technology, allows us to be more going much more in granularity and having kind of different way of associated, including, with the, when you say social enterprises, I'm always thinking, okay, what is the feeling when I'm having a nice coffee that is produced with love? Maybe the coffee is not even so nice, but if it's produced with love, for me, I feel very good with this. Your coffee is also nice, by the way, don't worry. But, and this is something that struck me when I was going to a bar here having a cappuccino. I was saying, what makes the difference from a cappuccino and another? They're the same cappuccinos. And it's the sense of belonging that in a certain places you have and the sense of belonging that you don't have in other places. And then suddenly the cappuccino is bad. And it's not the cappuccino, it's the sense of belonging that is missing. And this is, I think, the new frontier of the food systems.
And what, according to both of you, could the governments do to improve this sense of belonging or this achievement of a common vision? Because I think with what we can see now, it's kind of the opposite happening. So how could governments play a role in that?
I'm not sure whether it's not happening yet. What I see over the past couple of years in many countries is that Agenda 2030, so the Sustainable Development Goals, are indeed being taken in as guidance for policies. Again, as the answer that I gave to you, it's going too slowly. But it's definitely a narrative that's on the table and that we hear in parliaments and that we see businesses take up. So becoming a social enterprise or becoming sustainable enterprise or becoming sustainable governments is I think, the only trend, the only way forward. But because it's going too slowly, more pressure needs to be applied. And I remember that famous movie from Leonardo DiCaprio. Now I forgot the name, of course, but there was a professor from Harvard who looked at the way politicians behave, and he said leaders are elected followers, and I think there's a lot of truth in there. They feel what's going on in society, and in order to stay on top, in order to stay successful, you follow the most promising trend. And if you ask me, and if you look at current societies, this is the trend. There's no way back anymore. And the way conferences like these, the level of participation, the fact that just throughout most policy documents you see the SDGs is definitely a shift in thinking and in policy. So I'm hopeful.
Good.
Can I add an element on that? On the, it will be very helpful when the discussion on true cost and true value of food will become very serious. And this will force us, including government, to see those who are having subsidized system, they will have to adapt them. Those that don't have it, they will have to find way anyways to make sure that that who is in the business does in a way that actually slowly the ethics of what we are doing and what we are consuming, not only what we are producing, but what we are consuming and throwing away, becomes something that is inherent of ourselves and also part of the education system. Of course, there is not just an answer. But again, I saw, it just came rapidly, I saw the very young ones listening to about the chestnut stories. And it was like, I wanted to be there and be listening forever, this story, because this is something that is really getting to the heart of us, and definitely the young ones. And if a very young one goes from FAO, then who cares whether it's FAO, the mission, the bites, or whatever, it comes from this temple of the food systems and goes away with the perception that is doable, some change is possible and positive is possible. It's already, we already made our day, at least, then not the long-term future, of course.
First of all, thank you all for all your stories. My name is Sander. I'm an intern actually with the Netherlands, but I have a question on a personal title, let's say. So today we've kind of, the whole process of youth engagement culminated in today in the recommendations, which is very good. But my question is, how do we actually keep this momentum going? So what are we going to work towards in the coming years, the coming 2-3 years, at an upcoming food systems summit maybe, at the following CFS? How do we keep this momentum also at governments? I think it's a question to the both of you.
You can start.
Well, shall I start? Again, I go back to my intervention in the CFS this morning, applauding the process or saying that what mattered before today is actually much more important than what is being put on paper now. The fact that so many countries have been engaged and so many other stakeholders have been engaged in the process, thought about youth engagement and youth employment, youth empowerment. If you ask me, that got the ball rolling, and whether I'm actually pretty surprised that someone in Switzerland is reading an FAO document, because that is probably not happening that much. So the fact that we have created a kind of a movement is, I think that is the most valuable result of today and of this process that PO and colleagues started 2 years ago.
Very practically speaking, we, as a mission, so the mission, Swiss mission, is not running projects, right? This project was, thanks to the support of the Agency for Development, it was given to us to be managed. We didn't have the capacity, we still don't have the capacity, we just did it because we felt it was right to do it. Now, at the end of this process, of course, the project is going to be closed. We roll up the carpets. We take this kind of way where maybe we can do some compost with some of the products on and something like this, because our mandate as a mission is over. But we are just visiting Valposchiavo with some of the you are one of the early committed to this process. And you guys, you took the decision to create a very small association. Very small thing. You don't need to go big, right? Because this doesn't need to go big. You need to have thousands and thousands of small things like this that stay connected. That is what you need. But the fact that the 10 or 12 of these young guys that are multi-professional already in their nature, they decide they want to set up an association, not knowing whether they will get support or not support, is not a part of financial aspect, is the way to say we want to continue the journey despite you, the government, if you want. Put it in this way if you want to be more dramatic. And what is the journey? For me, the journeys are the adventures like Valposchiavo, that at the beginning of the 70s you told us you didn't have one single kilo production of buckwheat anymore, because this was the food of the poor. And we had to forget that we were poor. We want to forget, right? And now suddenly, 25 years after this basically single-ended activity, this man and few others have been slowly rebuilding a new narrative, because it's a matter of narrative at the beginning, and suddenly these activities are in again. And they even hit the market with a plus that allows even for people to make their living. And with new kind of range of products, until 190, I still remember the figures, you see, 190 different products from buckwheat. Buckwheat in the past, you know what would lead you to when you would eat too much buckwheat in the mountain areas? Do you know that? You would have this, I don't know in English how you call it, but this kind of something, because your thyroid would not function anymore, basically, if you eat only that one. You understand? And therefore, you can imagine, I want to get rid of this. I still have the pictures of my grandfather or whatever with this, and I don't want to see that. I don't want to know anything. You can imagine the journey to get to the point that actually you visit Valposchiavo, and you say, I want to be here forever. Okay, it was nice weather at that time. Right? It's true that it's not always. But I want to be there forever. This was my... is it true? And this is, I want to be in the outskirts of Abuja or Lagos, and I also want to be there one day and say, I want to be there forever. Right? This is where I want us, and I personally want us to get there. Because then we have saved the world anyway, if we do this.
Thank you, thank you. I think we're run out of time, but we could have a very quick question.
Hello. Yeah. So my name is Himanshu and I'm from India and I'm a vertical farmer myself. And there are only handful of vertical farms in India. Even climate control farms are like, you can count them on your fingers. But this is my request in form of a question. Like we have been working very closely with the Dutch embassy in India, in New Delhi, and also with the Dutch greenhouse delta. We need more cooperation from the Dutch farmers, from the Dutch suppliers in the Asian markets. We need not technology transfer, but technology sharing. We need more cooperative joint ventures. So this is a request. We have been working with them for like 2 years now. And we need your help and your support to like expedite that.
Well, hey, first of all, congratulations with your great enterprise.
Thank you.
And I'm sure you asked that question directly to my colleagues in Delhi.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they said no, or?
No, they are working.
Oh,
but
good.
It's like working.
Good. I will just reinforce that message for you.
Sure, thank you.
Thanks.
Ask to the Swiss colleagues in Delhi as well.
They have the money.
Oh, is that true?
Cliché. Okay, so unfortunately we ran out of time. Thank you very much again, Marcel. Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you, Pio, again. And we will thank you again throughout the afternoon. And yes, now you can take advantage, and the one who didn't do it yet, do a tour of all the stands, so you can see how this change is already actually being applied by different realities here.